Glad to have you back, everyone. You're still watching the morning show here on the Rise News. And we're changing our conversation to tourism, which is one of the fastest growing industries in the world and embraces areas of physical attractions, man-made like amusement and holiday resorts, wildlife-based attractions, and cultural attractions, just to mention a few.
I feel like going on holiday just because of that. Nigeria has numerous tourist centers spread across the 6 geopolitical zones. However, these tourist sites and attractions are yet to be maximized to their full potential. Critics have argued that in order to grow Nigeria's economy, the government must deliberately make concerted efforts to tap deeply into tourism.
Right, so joining us now is a culture and tourism consultant, Otunba Ayo Olumoko, who is a council member of the Federation of Tourism Association of Nigeria, FTAN, and presently the Zonal Vice President for Southwest. He's also the Vice Chairman, Tourism and Hospitality Committee of the Institute of Directors Nigeria Council. He is well known as a chief consultant of the annual Osun Osogbo Festival in Nigeria. Great to have you. We'd like to talk about, tourism potential and the problem. We've got great tourist sites, we've got great festivals, but we don't get that international appeal. A great one, I was excited when they talked about Osun Osogbo Festival. It's got a great appeal, but not where it should be in the world. I'll tell you this, I don't see as much pomp and pageantry on a site like TripAdvisor about it. I don't see Thomas Cook putting people on the plane and say, come to Osun Osogbo Festival. I don't see Tuyi or Verlin doing that. What is the problem?
Thank you very much for having me here. First of all, let me just try and correct one impression. My company, we've been in charge of Osun Osogbo Festival for the past 21 years, which is unfortunately limited. And we have had to divest our interests in May 2019. So basically, well, you see, the cultural activities and the promotion in Nigeria is just evolving. And if you look at it, we've had some problems in Nigeria in the past, where it's still in operation now, where a lot of people would not want to touch anything that has to do with culture. They want to say no, because they're Muslim, they are Tabligh. They will just say Astaghfirullah. And then when you have something on your table that has to do with culture and tourism sponsorship, if the person that is attending to it is a Christian, you say, God forbid. But within the last 21 years, we've been able to, bring about the operation of culture and tourism in Nigeria. And relatively, we must say that we've done very well. We fared very well. And of course, when you're talking about the promotion and of course making it to be more effectively organized, we need to have a lot of government backing. We need to have a lot of government moderation. We need to have a lot of government giving enabling environments to ensure that such really thrive. Now, if you look at Osun Osogbo Festival was really developed by the Osogbo people. It's been their culture. It's been for ages. It's been on since 1795 AD, where they have been doing it consistently without, without abating. Now, the Osun Osogbo Festival is one of the 2 heritage sites, that are listed by the UNESCO. And Osun Osogbo was listed in November.
The Grove.
The Grove, yes.
Not the festival, the Grove.
No, you see, there is no way you can divest the festival from the Grove. The festival make the Grove. The staff of Arise make Arise. You understand? So there is no way you can, because the activities that goes on there, it's what will really encourage people to come there. Like you see, the Grove in the past has been encroached, but the Osogbo people put their feet down.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is that in 2015, that's when the Grove was really listed. And thereon, a lot of things have been happening.
You talked about government presence, enabling environment. How much of that do we currently have? How much of government involvement do we have in tourism? And what impact is that having on the sector? How would you describe it?
Yes, I don't want to really just center on Osogbo alone now.
Yes, please.
Because from your questions, I think we're now
National.
Yes. And I want to say that basically it's zero.
Zero?
Zero. Zero in the sense that our administrators are not professional like. You see, we have to just say the truth here.
Administrators are not professionals?
They're not professionals.
People like Falari Koka are not professionals?
Relax.
Okay, I'm relaxing.
Relax. Administrators of our tourism and cultural activities are not professionals. What I'm trying to say here is that you find somebody that has been put in the hands of affairs at the federal government's angle who have not had any idea of what culture and tourism is all about. For instance, we used to have the Federal Minister of Culture, Tourism and National Orientation, which has been midwifed by Tokumbo, who is a lawyer. Afikuyomi. The only person that we really had that is from the tourism area industry is High Chief Edem Duke. And we all know that he only short-lived in that place. Even while he was in that place, a lot of things were happening, you know. It was not made to be focused on what is going on. And you see, for crying out loud, the current Minister of Culture, current Minister of Information and Culture is a lawyer. And that is why...
But I want to challenge you on that. So, for the fact that somebody is a lawyer, it doesn't stop the person from being a good administrator. And I'll give you a very great instance. As you said, by your words, administration, the capacity to be able to administrate and administer that place based on the goals and objectives. I'll shock you. There are people that run banks abroad that are not necessarily economists. The former head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, was a lawyer by training. You get? She is now the head of the European Central Bank. But most importantly, it's the administration based on a retinue of advisors and supervisors.
Well, I'll take that. But you see, let me tell you one thing. The tourism activities in Nigeria has been relegated to the background. We still don't have federal government, and some of the state government are really coming up with what they know how. If you look at when this government come in, they have to scrap the ministry, the administrative ministry for culture and tourism, and then now have to put it with information and culture. Why do they do that? Because they don't have information as at what culture and tourism, the value is adding to the GDP.
I think that was a bad thing or a good thing?
That was a bad thing.
Okay.
That was a bad thing. If you look at all over the developed countries, most of the economy is being driven by culture and tourism. Now, you see, that was scrapped. When it was scrapped, even when the minister comes in, he called us the stakeholders and said, look, I am new here. We are the people that will help us. But if you look at him, you see, what he's doing is it's just basically on information, not much on culture. We don't have to beg the question. You know, the point is when you have the square peg in the square hole, you get the right results, sincerely. And that is why we've been having skirmishes of problems here and there, and nobody can really tell us where, on how we can tap in on culture and tourism to change things here. Now, let me also add that the Bureau of Statistics, they are not also equally helping the situation.
Oh. That's an MBS.
The Bureau of Statistics, they're not helping the situation in the sense that by the time they're giving the federal government the areas where we have industry that are really adding variable things to the GDP, they don't they run down the culture and tourism. Why? Because they are always putting the inputs of the industry, they will add it to commerce.
No, but if you check the MBS report, you'll see that there's a role for hospitality there. And it's still pretty much in the gamut of culture and tourism. So there's a certain growth for hospitality there. And if you see the breakdown of the 43 items as regards that, and it's still a form of commerce anyway.
That one, you see?
They still fall on that commerce.
I'd like to come in here, and I would like to play devil's advocate for a bit. Now, you said something that caught my interest earlier about how the government has basically contributed zero when it comes to culture and tourism. Let's look at a state like Lagos State. Now, at the end of 2018, we saw that tourism and culture had actually contributed about 50 million naira and that was just in December alone. Now, a state like Lagos State, we see that a lot of private-owned tourism spots, institutions, restaurants, concerts, all these things that contribute to the people that come into Lagos State around the Yuletide season to be part of making the economic strength of Lagos State go bigger, is actually owned by private citizens. So it did take the government looking at the state to say, okay, you know what, there is room here. We can help, we can apply. But don't you think that maybe the citizens, the state government, and to try and see what can be done first? How can we improve tourism before we start to put blame on the federal government as a whole? We're going on a short break soon, and I would like to know what your take is on that. But I'm really interested to know what your take on this is.
Okay, after the break,
Go ahead.
right?
Go ahead.
Now, you see, let me tell you, when you asked the question, I did say that some states are doing very well. And that, everything still lies in the purview of the federal government. The federal, they're not doing anything. And there are just about 2 or 3 states that are really trying their best to see what's going on. Like the Lagos states, Cross River states, and probably Osun State slightly, For Lagos states, you see that Lagos State is a state in which most other states are always coming here to tap one thing or the other. They're very cerebral. The culture and tourism activities...
Olumoko, sorry to interrupt your line of thought, but we'll go on that break now and come back and talk some more about the potentials of the states. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. We're still discussing tourism in Nigeria, and we have a tourist consultant, Otunba Ayo Olumoko. Thank you so much for staying with us. Shaitan had asked you before that break sort of the state potentials, and I'd like to continue on that line of thoughts because a lot of people reference Dubai, which is great. Dubai receives not less than 16 million visitors yearly, but it's the United Arab Emirates. There are 7 emirates. But you see that Dubai and Abu Dhabi are strategically positioned for tourism. Do you think that perhaps we are getting it wrong for a national view for tourism? Are there states that we can put forward, like putting our best foot forward as regards tourism? What does the national policy on tourism actually even says?
Well, trying to make a comparison of United Arab Emirates, Emirates to Nigeria,
it's not a fair comparison.
It's not a fair comparison. Because how many states make that? Just about 5 or 6 states. And they really harnessed their resources from oil, and then, they champion something to bring the world down there. But I'll keep on saying that if you look at Nigeria, reverse is the case. Earlier on, you asked a question about the fact that some states are getting it right. And I want to say that, yes, Lagos, Cross River, they're getting it right because they've had good initiative, especially Cross River. They've had good initiative, which the former governor, Donald Duke, has been able to put something down. And if you look at the trend successively, there have been improvements on the man-made carnival, which is the Calabar Carnival. You know, some of us were against it before because it's not natural and things like that. But you can see the way it's been done now. People are brought, a lot of concerts are brought in internationally and things like that. But if you look at Lagos State, the one of the culture and tourism in Lagos State started during the era of Governor Rachi Fashola. He tried to do something, but he couldn't really conclude it. When the immediate past governor comes in, I want to give culture, tourism, and Steve Ayorinde. Steve Ayorinde called the stakeholders. He called us as the Southwest Vice President of the tourism industry in Nigeria. He called us. He asked for input. And you see, within 1 month, he did the stakeholders and this thing, and then he had a calendar. He had a calendar for these states. Calendars of those that they are sponsoring and the ones they are not even doing anything about. That is the enabling environment that we're talking about. Okay. Now, in conclusion, the government, that's the governor now, they are trying to do what we call trying to get a policy. They got a consulting company, which is an accounting company, to give them a policy. And then afterwards, they call us, the stakeholders again, to come and speak to it.
Which governor? Are you talking about?
I'm talking of the immediate past governor.
Okay.
You understand? Up till today, ask the Lagos State government, where is the master plan, policy, trusts on culture and tourism?
Seeing a problem of sustainability.
I'm sorry, that brings me to that question about the national policy on tourism, which I haven't really heard a response from you. Do we have a national policy on tourism? What does this say? What is the direction, focus? Do we have a competitive advantage?
We don't have. Okay, sincerely speaking, we don't have.
Okay, I wanted to come in here. The Commissioner of Tourism Lagos State was here a couple of days ago, and she talked about the roadmap, about what they're doing as regards, pushing the state forward. They're talking about the heritage of Lagos, Saleko, the Portuguese and the Brazilian community, the strides they have been doing, the events organized across all sectors in Lagos. And she says she's targeting Lagos, to be the tourism front. Is it not time that we start having intended targets as regards what we want to achieve based on comparative advantage? And I'll give you an instance. You talked about the 7 Emirates, and you said it's only Dubai that is doing quite well in tourism. I totally disagree with you. There's a place called Sharjah, another Emirate. Sharjah, since 1982, has positioned themselves as the book tourism capital of the world. One of the biggest international book fair is the Sharjah International Book Fair. They are not doing what Dubai is doing in the Emirates. They are focusing on books. Millions of visitors every year go to Sharjah for the 11-day event, book fair. Isn't it time we start thinking of places where we have comparative advantage and following them?
Well, it's time we start having comparative advantage. And I've not talked about this current Lagos State government and their activities. What I've just done to
Have they called you as stakeholders?
No, we've been talking.
Okay.
No, we've been talking, but we've not had a formal stakeholders meeting. Because you see, when you have something that is good and you're coming into that shoe, you need to ensure that you get your things right. So the current commissioner for culture and tourism in Lagos State, she's doing a lot of things to ensure that she's well prepared for the work. You understand? I'm a member of tourism and hospitality in the Institute of Directors. We had a program in November in which she was there with the governor, and they give us the roadmap of what they wanted to do, which is in tandem with what we have in mind, which is also in tandem with what, they did not do away with what the immediate past commissioner have done. They are building on it. Not until we have a meeting and we see what they're doing, then we'll know. And then
but you said they've given you the roadmap already. Yeah. What meeting is needed again?
They elucidate on the roadmap. They haven't given the roadmap for now.
Okay.
They elucidate on what they intended to do with the roadmap. They are still in the kitchen, preparing what they needed to prepare. But from the tips of what they've given to us, I'm telling you, they are doing very fantastically well. Okay. You understand? So I know that they don't want to face the stakeholders without having something, and haven't known that the stakeholders are part of what was prepared last. You understand? So personally, I've talked to her, and she said she's going to have a stakeholder meetings and things like that. Because, of course, what we actually really wanted is continuity, and then for us to really ensure that we have that policies down. But I can tell you, fair enough, you know, we Nigerians were very, very difficult to please. You know, people have started saying, he's looking at this, they're doing this, they're not doing roads, they're not doing that. But they don't know that it takes a gestation period for government to put those things in place. As far as Lagos State is concerned, yes, they're getting it right, and we know that by the time we get to the table to discuss with them, they should be able to give something that we can work together and synergize our activities.
Okay, as a stakeholder, I'm just curious to know, because you said that they're in the gestation period. What are you expecting? What would you want to see on that document that shows that, okay, we are on the right track? And also, quickly before we go, how do we maintain sustainability? Because you have spoken about transference of powers and how that can almost delay or change the direction of the roadmap. So I'm asking you these two things. What would you like to see, and how can we sustain it?
A lot of things to be seen. Let them give enable environment. Let them assist stakeholders, you know, and then infrastructure, let them make it open, let them do a lot of promotions, you know, and some other things which they already know, which they are working on. You understand? All we needed to do now is they wanted to bring out for Lagos State, they wanted to bring out their calendar. They're working on the calendar. And as a result of that, they've asked so many of the stakeholders to bring in even their products so that they can list them. In fact, what they have said for this administration is that they will even not only list them, but they will also see a way of supporting. So that's the enabling environment that we're asking for. Now, before we close everything, let's talk about the federal government, which is the major thing. You know, which is the major thing. Quickly. Yeah, very quickly, you will see that we're having a lot of imbroglio that is going on. You know, if you look at what is happening at the artist village, for instance, it's a very sorry thing. Of course, the federal government, they are not really empowering the agencies. Those are the parastatals. You have the issue of budget being delayed, implementation of budget being delayed, until probably they will release their budget until maybe third quarter and things like that.
Unfortunately, there's so much to talk about when it comes to tourism in Nigeria, but we have to anchor it here. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully, we'll bring you back sometime soon to discuss some more. Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of the show today. I am Adesoa Omorwan.
I'm Rufai Sini.
And I am Shaiton Atigari. Thank you for watching. You can also follow us on all the social media handles showing now on the screen. This is Arise News.